Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Hello, and thank you for joining us today on this episode of Her Version. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I'm speaking with an amazing woman named Maureen Scanlon. Maureen is a certified life coach, award-winning author, and professional speaker. She is here to share her journey about abuse, having zero self-esteem, and how her dogs taught her what unconditional love really is. Listen in as she explains how she escaped a cycle of insanity, learned how to love herself, and realized the importance of setting boundaries. Welcome, Maureen.
Hi, Sabrina Victoria.
How are you?
So happy to be here, and I love your middle name because it's my daughter's middle name as well. So I didn't share that with you, but I'm so excited to be here. I love what you're doing, and I'm honored to be a guest today.
I love that. Hey, quick, before we move on with that, how did you know that was my middle name?
Because it's what you go by.
Yes, but most people assume that's my last name.
Oh,
That was
no.
interesting.
I knew. It would be a rare last name. So
It would be, but most people think that that's what it is. But yeah, that is my first name and my middle name. Wow. Very intuitive. Very intuitive. Well, listen, I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to sit with me and the Her Version audience to tell your story and your journey and all of the wonderful things that you've gone through to get you to where you are now. How has your week been? How has January 2022 been treating you?
It's amazing. This is a different year. I've just retired from corporate in November. So it's kind of cool that I'm starting this brand new year with all of my dreams, all of my things on my vision board from 2021 were met. So I'm kind of easing into 2022. I'm like, okay, let's just see what life brings. And to be able to start with a podcast with you is just, the beginning of build it and they will come. So
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's so exciting. So I would love to kind of jump right into your story. I know that your story has some darkness within it. And I so appreciate you coming on and, kind of being vulnerable and sharing some of that with us. But I would love to really just kind of open the floor to you and really kind of let you talk about your childhood and how that kind of led you on your journey to some of the abuse that you kind of went through during your younger years.
Absolutely. It's interesting that hindsight is 2020 and you don't realize, and some of us it takes 10 years, some 20 years. For me, it took really about 45 years till I really discovered what was going on with me. And, they say, some people are slow learners, and I think I was a slow learner. I like to view it, and I tell my clients that if you're experiencing the same experience over and over, you just haven't learned it yet. So you're either learning or you're teaching. And so I took a long time to learn in order to become the life coach that I am, to relate to people who go through these same things. So to begin, as a child, and it's kind of an odd thing, as a child, I just felt I did not belong in my family. I felt at a very young age, like maybe 5, 6, I would see things that were happening in my family, and maybe it's the empath, but I would be like, "Ooh, that's not right. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't say that." And as I was growing, I would say to my mom, "I'm not going to be like that when I'm a mom. I'm going to do this different when I'm a mom." And so it was obviously in my awareness. So my family is and I think when they say you're a product of your generation, it really is true. And I'm a Gen Xer. I am 50 plus, so 50 and nifty and proud. But that generation, it wasn't about nurturing. It wasn't about feelings. It wasn't about take a mental day or take a time out. It was suck it up, buttercup, and you made your bed, lie in it, and just handle it. It was really a time, as I look back, of just kind of raising yourself. And you just didn't know how to navigate emotions, or you just didn't talk about that stuff. And especially in my family. In addition to that, my mother, God love her, she's much better in her older age, and we have a relationship. But my mother was very OCD. So she came from an upbringing. Her father was an alcoholic, and there was very little control in her family, as far as there was a lot of chaos. She was raised to raise her younger brothers and sisters. So I believe now she saw children as a burden, and I felt it. I felt that every day growing up. I felt that I was never considered a blessing, but I was an obligation. And we talked one time about how she spoke to me when I was a child, and she admitted I wanted perfect children. That concept in itself is, what is a perfect child anyway?
Yes.
Yeah. Impossible to no one's perfect. But that's sort of the theme of my life. It was carried through, and my mother was not very nurturing. She was not one that sat down with you and talked to you about the birds and the bees, or she was raised Catholic and went to Catholic school. So she was kind of like a Catholic nun. She was very, very strict. We had very little freedom to do anything. And it just, as the years went on, I started more rebelling. My sister became more compliant, and things were not sitting well with me. What I realized was there was this codependent component that I grew up with. Now, people think codependence is I'm not like I need you for all of these things. And really, codependence is also I'm not good unless you're good, or my life will not be well unless I make sure you're well. And I realized that's what I carried into my adult life. So the first guy that came along that told me he loved me, of course, I fell head over heels at 18 years old.
Wow. Okay.
And married him.
Wow.
The short version is we had gone to high school together, graduated, and we reunited. I saw him. I was working at a mall, and I saw him, and it was a whirlwind. So that was probably December. We started dating, and for me, it was this escape. It was my home life sucks. I need to get out of here. And so I really ran to him for that love that I didn't feel like I got at home. It was super conditional love. If I did everything right, which I never did everything right. I was always told that I did everything, pardon my French, half-assed. So it was this insertion of I'm never good enough. I'll never be perfect enough. I'll never do anything right. So, of course, the first person that shows me this love that I've needed, I'm out of there at 18. So we started dating in December. I was a virgin. I had sex for the first time in April.
Wow.
And then I was pregnant by May 4th.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Were you happy to be pregnant?
I was happy. I was happy, but I also was like scared to death because I had no idea about sex. I had no idea about anything about being an adult, because I went from really being under these strict guidelines from my parents. Even after I graduated high school, I had a curfew and I had no freedom. Then all of a sudden I had all this freedom. So I was very naive to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were red flags, of course, that I missed because I had no idea what to look for, what not to look for. And my parents had said, basically, if you got pregnant, we were going to disown you. And so that's how that progressed. And he ended up, this is my children's father, he ended up joining the military without telling me.
Oh.
So we have this sort of shotgun wedding. Nobody shows up except for a couple of friends.
Wow.
And he leaves 16 days later. Yeah.
Wow.
So I go through this pregnancy all by myself.
Wow.
I was extremely sick with my daughter, throwing up literally morning sickness, 24/7.
Yeah.
I was a preschool teacher at the time, lost my job. We had an apartment together before he left. He wasn't sending any money, so I lost the apartment, had to go live with his grandmother in a sort of 55 and older community thing. I think it was just, a sympathy, helping me out. And yeah, going through the entire pregnancy, no medical care because I had no idea that when you join the military that I was actually covered if I was a spouse. So I had no prenatal care whatsoever. And did end up moving in with a friend at the Air Force Base because he was in the military and he was in Missouri and I'm in Arizona, and went into labor, called my mother and said, hey, I'm going into labor. And she said, well, it's your first one. It'll be a while. And I said, I don't think so. My water broke and I think I'm going to have her pretty soon. I didn't know what she was, but and I walked into the hospital 9 centimeters and
my gosh.
She was born natural, within 20 minutes. And it was tough. It was tough to not have him there, not to have family there, to be so young and experience this all by yourself. I wasn't even able to call him. We had to call the Red Cross to let him know. Wow. And I just remember feeling so alone. So in the military hospitals back then, this was in the 90s, there's 6 women to a room and you have no privacy when their babies are screaming. It was just crazy. And what they would do is they would do a little announcement on the intercom behind your head on the headboard, and they would say, you need to bring your baby to the nursery. And so I'd put her in the little bassinet and I'd be walking down the hall like it was like, dead woman walking. It was just like, oh, she's the only thing I have in this world and they're going to take her. And that's how it felt. It was just, I had nothing. I felt I had nothing. And I felt I was so alone in the world. Yeah. And so he did not get to, he came home for like 3 days just to see her. And then he had to go back. His first duty station was in Germany. And in Germany at the time, the military did not give you housing if you were under a certain rank. Well, he was just an enlisted person. So we were on the low end. So you had to get a house with the German people. You had to rent.
So you had a baby and then they only allow him 3 days? Or is that what he wanted?
Nope, 3 days. That was all.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeez.
And so I was staying with a friend on base for about 3 months. And I would keep calling him and say, when are you getting us a house? When am I coming? Unbeknownst to me, he was hanging out in the barracks with the single guys, drinking his check away. He wasn't sending me any money.
Oh, wow.
And I finally called him and said, hey, I'm coming. You need to find a place because I just bought plane tickets. He went to his first sergeant and said, oh my gosh, my wife and baby are coming. I don't have a place. Imagine how quickly they got him a place.
Wow.
Yeah, we ended up.
Well, good for you.
I was,
like putting your foot down.
Yeah. I mean, what did he expect me to do? Like stay home and raise this kid for the next 5 years till he decided to do something.
Wow.
So he never really was right from the beginning. He
Yeah.
never was caretaking. He never was responsible. He never was. There was just a level of, I should have seen it, but again, in my family, you made your bed, you lie in it. So now I got to make the best of the situation. So I go over to Germany, and we have this housing, and then the physical abuse started. So he had no idea how to be a husband, how to be a father. And it was a lot. It was a lot. All of a sudden, you leave. I'm 3 months pregnant. I see you again, and I have a 3-month-old baby. And
Yeah.
now you're in it. Now you're just in the deep end. Make it work. After he'd been kind of doing the single life and stuff before I got there.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
So it was interesting because my mindset at that time, Sabrina, was that I deserved it. And that's so hard to even say today, that's where I was. Like, I felt like from all the things that were programmed into me, that I did these choices, I made these choices, I'm the one that got pregnant. I never blamed anyone else. I just felt like I deserve this. This is what I deserve. My parents always said that I don't make good choices, or that I'm not smart, or so I just stuck it out with him, and we ended up getting pregnant again with my second daughter. Now, when I got pregnant with her, I was really sick. And I went into the military hospital, and they said, we think she's an ectopic pregnancy and we need to abort. And this was devastating for me because
I don't know what that means.
So a tubal pregnancy. So it's when the egg gets fertilized in the tube, fallopian tube. And if it's not aborted or removed, the mother will die.
Got it.
It will burst your tube and you will bleed to death.
Wow. Okay.
And it was so devastating because for me, this was like a do-over. This was like, okay, I went through this whole thing by myself, no one there to rub my belly, and delivered alone. So now I'm with my husband, and now we can do this. And I was so excited to have this baby. And when they said that we'd have to abort, it was devastating. Yeah. And I remember calling my mom and saying, hey, this is what's going on. And her words to me were, well, you don't need another one anyway. Oh. And I said, wow. Well, but I am having another one, and I really don't want to lose this baby. And so at the time, it was when the Desert Storm War broke out. Okay. And we were sitting there watching TV one day, and they were saying, we're going to war. And when you're in Germany overseas, you're like the first ones to go because you're close, and they have all of the equipment right there. And so this was insane. Here I am pregnant. We find out that it's okay. It's not an ectopic. So we're good. We're good. The baby's okay. And he gets a call from his commander, and he says, pack your bags and be ready to leave at any moment for Turkey. It was between his general and another general from another company. They were going for their 5th star. And so by going to war, you get this extra star. And so here we were on pins and needles thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to be in a foreign country having, being pregnant and having this baby. And fortunately, his company did not get called.
Wow.
So that was such a relief, but just those amounts of stress and just fears and just the anxiety that you go through, and just not understanding what tomorrow is going to bring and what's going to happen. So he did have an alcohol issue and addiction. And, I didn't understand any of it at that age. I just thought, why don't you stop? You need to just stop. And Sabrina, you can completely understand this. And I remember asking him, do you ever think about me and your children when you put that bottle to your mouth? And he said, no. And that was like, ugh, you know, really? But I get it now. I really do get it. So we were in Germany and, you know, he was stressed out. I think he was working extra hours. They make you pull extra duty. So he was doing probably, you know, 12, 16-hour days. And then he'd come home to me and, you know, babies, toddlers. And one day he lost it on me and we were arguing and he picked me up and he threw me about 8 feet across the room and I landed on my ear and I busted my eardrum open. And you know, you're here I am isolated with, you know, no family, no one to turn to. Like, what do you do? I couldn't afford to fly home. I couldn't call my parents because they never supported this in the first place. So I ended up calling a friend and leaving, and he called and did the apologies, and it'll never happen again. And, you know, I'm in that mindset, okay, if you're going to change. And so we did go to the military for some counseling. And unfortunately, the military is not an advocate for helping families. Actually I think they actually help more alcoholics than they do like the family mentality because everything in the military was drinking, party.
Yeah.
Even when they got together, you know, when you'd have a company picnic, drinking. You know, the only thing available are these clubs on, you know, the military bases. So that's all they ever did. So I kind of went the other way where I'm like, well, if I can't beat them, I'll join them. And so we really I tried to figure out a way to make it where, okay, just do it with me and don't do it any other time. But that's not how alcoholism works, as you know.
Yes.
And, you know, it was still rocky, but we did end up leaving Germany and going to California. And we got stationed at Fort Ord in Monterey. And that's when I had the two girls. And, you know, it seemed like it got a little bit better, but it was still, he was never engaged in the marriage. He was never engaged with having children. He really wanted to be a single guy, but he was stuck in this life
Wow.
that he had to live. And it really just got worse. He ended up getting discharged. We moved back home to Arizona and we were in this little tiny townhouse, about maybe 600 square feet for the four of us. It was just this tiny thing. I had finally gotten my nursing in California. So I was I think it was subconscious. I was sort of planning maybe to have my own, you know, life and be able to support myself because I think I must have known something was coming.
Got it.
When we were in this townhouse, he was going to mechanic school. He was working during the day and he wouldn't come home. So it would be, and I was working graveyard shift. And so he wouldn't come home. I'd be calling hospitals and jails and, you know, trying to find him. And one night he came home and he would get black rage from drinking. It was, and it's a thing, you know, people think, oh, you don't just black out. Well, he didn't pass out. He got rage and he would just completely snap. And so this particular night he came home, my girls were in bed and I must have said, I got to go to work. You know, where have you been? How dare you do this? And he got me down on the ground and he had his hand around my throat and he was basically strangling me. Wow. And I just remember, Sabrina, this is like the most profound thing that I remember is when they talk about the blackness closing in.
Yeah.
It's so real. And I remember as it was closing in, I just kept thinking, my girls are going to find me dead. My girls are going to find me dead and they're not going to have a mom. And they were 2 and 4 at the time. And I thought, I can't die. I can't die. And somehow, superhuman strength, I got my legs up on his shoulders and I got him off of me.
Wow.
And I sat up, and those first breaths hurt my lungs. And so I
Wow.
knew I was within moments of dying. And
Wow.
I just remember thinking, my gosh, like, why do I not get out of this? How do I not get out of this? But at the time, I still was in that mentality, that victim, or that sort of hostage mentality, where I have no way to get out of this. And there's such a thing as financial abuse, when you don't have the economic means to take care of your kids or to get out.
100%.
And so that really stopped it. Didn't have the support of friends and family. I hadn't told anyone that I was being abused. So it was just being in this little protective world of mine that nobody knows what's happening to me.
Yeah.
It just, as the years progressed, I think this happens often when you're a victim of abuse. I think it's, you start justifying why you're still in it.
Yeah.
You make
Yeah.
excuses like, well, he doesn't hurt my kids, so that's okay.
Yeah.
Or, he only hurts me when he drinks. He's great all the rest of the time. And I mean, now, of course, knowing what I know now, I look back and I think, if anyone was in front of me who was in that situation, I would do everything and anything to get them out of that and to help them to see that that's not normal and you don't have to live that way. But you go through these experiences so you can one day understand and help others. But it was finally, we moved to a house here in Scottsdale, Arizona, and bought a house. And we were on the verge of divorce. We were just, it was just a matter of time where I could get my ducks in a row and get out. We still were trying to make it work. I look back now, because when I tell you what I'm going to tell you, which is I got pregnant again, you're going to go, why were you doing that? But I now realize that was another form of the abuse, because he would get mad at me if I didn't have sex with him, or if I wouldn't do it how he wanted to. So sex was never about pleasure for me. I had no idea that sex was supposed to be pleasurable.
Wow.
It was, in my mind, an obligation. And it was also a tool for me to think, okay, well, if I do this, maybe he won't go drink and maybe he won't hurt me. So it was like a bartering tool, I guess, in my own mind. Like, okay, if you do this, then he'll be okay for a while.
Yeah.
That didn't work, obviously. There was no intimacy, no connection, no love there. It was just, now I know I was just an object for him. So my son is 10 months old. And one day I get up, and this is when chat rooms just started in 98.
Yes.
And I walk behind him, and he's on, those big desktop computers. And I see him chatting with somebody and saying like, hey, sexy, blah, 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 blah. And I said, what are you doing? That's cheating. That's like emotional cheating. I mean, why are you doing that? You have a wife here. And he goes, oh, I'm just talking to people. I'm just having fun. And I said, yeah, that's not cool with me. I find out, I get a credit card statement. There's a charge. I call the credit card company and say, hey, we didn't do this. What's going on here? It was a dating site that he had joined.
Wow.
Yeah. And I looked in his truck one day. I was going to get something, and I saw these pictures of these really, skimpy pictures of this girl. And there's a letter to him, and it was addressed to his work. And so in the end, he ended up just, being unfaithful and cheating, which is something, oddly enough, I didn't think he ever would do. He would do a lot of stuff to me, but why I never thought he would betray me in that way is beyond me. So when he did, for me, that was the straw.
Wow.
Super weird. You
Yeah.
think all that stuff that you went through. He almost killed you. He's,
Wow.
he has no thought about you as his family or his children. But that was a straw for me. Like, I've gone through all of this with you. I went through Al-Anon while he was going through AA, while I was pregnant with my son. And
Wow.
I thought, I've given all of this, and for you to do this with another woman, um, believe it or not, I have more self-worth than that. But I had no idea what self-worth really was. So yeah, we ended up getting divorced, and he just he just wasn't present for the children. It was, yeah, he wouldn't send money, no child support. So being the single mom for all those years, I, of course, repeated this process, went into another marriage, about a year out of my divorce. And this guy was really nice. He was not abusive. He was not an alcoholic, anything like that. But there wasn't the love there that should have been there. And again, not knowing my worth, not knowing what to look for
Okay.
me, the bar wasn't very high.
Yeah.
If you don't abuse me, then you must be a great guy.
Yeah.
You're not like him, so you must be good, without taking all that other stuff into account.
Yeah.
Will he be a good stepdad? Will he, is he a good provider? And ultimately, what ended it was he wasn't a good stepdad. He was, his upbringing was very authoritative, and then I was overprotective of my children, of course, at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
So it never blended the way it should have.
Mhm.
And so I divorced again. And again, the cycle repeats. I still didn't know how to find my worth, how to heal. I didn't even know what was wrong with me. I didn't even know any of this was my doing or my creation or even my ability to change.
Yeah.
My mindset was always, these are the cards I was dealt. I guess I just have to deal with it. If I didn't have bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. I mean, it was really that problem focused mind, not solution minded at all, because I didn't believe I had any choices. And I think that's, if I could tell any women out there that are in this situation, is you do have choices even when you feel you don't.
Yeah.
So I met another person. He was actually worse than my first husband. And I'll tell you how he was worse. He was not physically abusive. He was psychologically abusive.
Got it. Yeah.
That was worse than any physical abuse I had ever endured.
Isn't that crazy?
He was a sociopath. Everyone loved him. He was, to the world, he was this funny, outgoing, great guy. He would do anything for me. So he comes in, in this disguise, and they call those covert narcissists. And he was covert.
Wow.
He works his way in, and eventually he quits his job. He's one of these that blames everybody for everything. He sues everybody for everything because it's everybody else's fault in the world that he doesn't have $1 million. And he literally, like, and it was a slow burn where because I'm like, this will never happen to me again. I'm really smart. I'll never let a guy lay a hand on me or abuse me. This was crazy. This was like, going through the wormhole and you don't see what's on the ground. This was this slow burn where I paid for everything. He moved into my home. I supported us. But while I'm doing that, he's super controlling as far as, I wouldn't even say controlling, I'd say obsessed. I would leave the house to go to work. There'd be 15 texts before I got to work, 20 while I'm at work, phone call after phone call after phone call. And it just slowly became where he just like suffocated me to where I became this really small person who felt I had no control or say in my life.
So you said he quit his job, so he's just at home, just
Yep.
wow.
He had me, and I've never been diagnosed with depression. I never felt I was a person that could be depressed.
Yeah.
But what I found was I think there's a subconscious depression that we don't know about. And
Oh,
you try to fight, but you don't even realize what's happening. It's just sort of, it's covert. It's happening. I'd be in bed every night at 6 o'clock at night, and he would bring me a dinner on a tray, and I was okay with that. Like, that is so not me. And eventually, I realized he was an alcoholic as well. He was hiding it. So he was a closet alcoholic, and he would lie and he would steal from me. He would sell things from my house, things of value. He would, he's a gambler. So he would go cash in things from the house and then use the money for lottery tickets. And I stayed in this for 6 years.
Wow. Now, was your
Yeah.
justification for that, did it a lot of times go back to he's such a nice guy? Or how do you justify that one?
That one was the psychological abuse, which is you think you're crazy because everyone else is like, he's really great. You're so lucky. Look at this awesome guy. Look what he does for you. Look at how much he takes care of you. And when I would bring up things like I had to put a lock on my purse because he'd steal my debit card. And
Wow.
I would confront him and he'd go, oh, no, I didn't do that. And I'd say, yeah, you did. It's right here. And he goes, you should go to the bank and tell them that that's fraud. Like, he was always 10 steps ahead of what I would ask him or how I would catch him. And he would turn it around and he'd go, well, no, we went to the gas station last week. And that was when we did the gas station. But that would be like yesterday. And I go, oh, okay. So he
Gaslight.
yes, and he
Yeah.
messed with my head so bad that I just literally, I thought I was crazy. And it was a month before I finally made the break. And I'll tell you how I made the break. My daughter got married a month before I made the break. And I remember my family was all, coming around us. And my father literally looks at him and goes, hey, how's Mr. Perfect? So it's like, I had that first situation with my parents where they didn't like the relationship I was in. And now I have a guy where they think he's wonderful. How do I get out of that?
Yes.
My whole mind was like, I don't trust my judgment. I don't trust myself. Am I crazy? Am I losing this? So it was finally one night I had tried to get him out of my house. So I ended up saying, I'm evicting you. I called his family. Nobody would take him in. He went and lived in my travel trailer in a storage area. He wouldn't go. He just wouldn't go, and no one would take him. And we were at that point, I had him in a guest room, and I was like, I don't want anything to do with you. You've got 30 days to get out. Okay, I'll get out. Yeah, he never would. The 30 days would come and he'd gaslight and he would, convince me he's not drinking. I would give him breathalyzer tests and he would pass them, even though I knew he was drunk. He drank these weird drinks. It was like alcohol and orange soda mixed. I don't know what they're called, but I would know because his tongue would be orange. So it's like, I know you're drinking. And they'd be like, no, I'm not here. Let me do the breathalyzer. And he would pass it. And more of that, piling on and me going, I'm crazy. I'm making things up in my head. What is wrong with me? So as I felt like I was doing this sort of subconscious depression, didn't know this, I ended up getting cervical cancer.
Oh my God.
I had skin cancer. I got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. I was walking with a cane at 32 years old.
Wow.
So if you don't think your emotional and mental health affect your physical, let me tell you.
Wow.
one night I go out to dinner with my sister and my phone is blowing up, and I did everything I could to stay away from him. I would leave my own house and try to stay away from my own house just to not be around him because it was so unhealthy. So I was at dinner with my sister. My phone's blowing up. My daughter calls me and she says, what's going on with him? And I go, what do you mean? I said, he's been calling me 50 times. She said, he's in a suit and he's completely obliterated. And he's talking about taking you for a romantic walk around the lake. And I'm like, okay. So, Sabrina, there's just those moments where you go, this is like crazier than fiction. This is really crazy, Maureen. That was the moment when I'm like, okay, I can't.
Yeah.
I go home. He confronts me in the hallway.
With the suit on.
With the suit on, completely drunk. I go to my room and I lock the door so he can't get in. I'm calling my daughter and I said, can you guys come over here? Her and her husband come. My bedroom balcony overlooks the backyard and he is pacing around the backyard, just ranting and raving. And I called his parents and I said, this is it. You can come and get him or I'm calling the police and you can bail him out of jail.
Wow.
And thank goodness his mom and dad came and his dad had to strong arm him to get him out. I was like, oh God, I finally got him out. Well,
yeah.
Unbeknownst to me, he thought he was going to come back the next day. He thought he was going to brush over it. Everything was going to be fine. And he'd be back the next day. Well, I told his parents, I've got all of his stuff packed up. Come and get it. Come and get his stuff. I'm completely done with this guy. They come to pick up his stuff. He goes around the house and he sabotages everything. He unplugs the garbage disposal, the gas on the grill, the pool pump. I mean, anything and everything he could destroy, he did, but nobody knew because we were in the garage waiting for him to get his stuff.
Got it.
Because he thought I would need him to fix this stuff. So he wanted me to meet him and call him. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even think of that. Yes.
That was his logic. She needs me, or I want her to need me, because those are the things that kept him secure in himself, was if I needed him. And that's why he basically broke me down to be sort of this little small version of who I used to be and lost all that independence of who I was. And so finally I get him out. He gets his stuff. I think there was still some stuff left over. He starts harassing me. And I mean, emailing, texting, calling my work. He would pretend to be, he would call the electric company and have it shut off, or the cable company. He'd call my parents, my daughter, my best friend. So he was just honing in on everything that made me be secure. I mean, I was looking over my shoulder. I was terrified. Not that I thought he would physically harm me, but when someone's sort of that obsessed, you don't know if they could snap.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a crime junkie, so I know people snap when you remove the thing that they want the most.
Yeah.
And so I think it ended up being, they wouldn't release my travel trailer because it was in storage under his name. So I called the police and we started a case trying to get that back. In the meantime, thank goodness, they contacted a detective in, I think it was the domestic violence area. And I couldn't get them to understand that this guy's doing this. What can I do? Well, I got a restraining order, but a restraining order is nothing but a piece of paper. It is not a shield. It does nothing. He pretty much has to be standing on your doorstep and while the police pull up for them to do anything.
Got it.
And he was a really smart guy. So he knew how to work around everything. Finally, I'd had enough and I was documenting. And the detective just, thank goodness. And she was a woman. Thank God. She was amazing. And she said, that's it. This is ridiculous. I think there were over 400 in 1 month. or, it was nonstop. I couldn't not be affected by it. There was no way
Wow.
that, you could just ignore or whatever. So they ended up arresting him. He did end up going to jail for aggravated harassment.
Wow. Good.
And then he did like 90 days. And then every year after that, he would do something to harass me. Like so I'd have to renew the restraining order every single year. And
Wow. Like on the date? Like,
yep, this is like it's been 10 years. And literally, like up to a few months ago, like he was still doing stuff.
so he just like puts it in his planner, like in his calendar to
I
like,
think so. I think so. I think
wow.
he cannot let it go. He can't let it go. And so I would get the restraining orders, and I did that for about 7 years.
That's ego. Huge
Oh,
ego.
yeah. He said,
Yeah.
I ruined his life. I took his life away.
Wow.
And then I remember, Sabrina, after that 7th year, just going, I'm not doing this anymore. I am not giving this one more ounce of energy, because where attention goes, energy flows.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing it. I'm not giving any more energy or acknowledgement to you. You cannot affect me. I am healing myself. And, like I said, he'll pop out. And I always say, oh, the snake will pop its head out, but I don't care. I'm not afraid of snakes anymore. But I finally had to go through this journey, this 2-year journey where I had to learn to be alone. I had never been alone. So
Yes.
18 to 45, I had never been alone.
Wow.
I had
Okay.
to come to that realization that everything that happened, I was the common denominator. This wasn't
Wow.
just bad luck. This was you, Maureen. This is you attracting this. What are you
Wow.
doing?
Yeah.
What's wrong? What can you do differently to get what you want? And that's where the soul journey began. And
Yes. Yeah. So when did you start to find out about narcissism? Like obviously during this whole thing, you're like most people, all of us, where we're just kind of like leading our lives and we don't know how we're producing all of these jackasses or however, we're describing them. So at what point during this journey did you start to realize like narcissism and codependency and empathy? What age would that look like for you?
that literally was not until I was 45. So
Wow.
this is like way after all of it was happening. And I think I just had this acceptance that whatever happens is I deserve it. I deserve it. I'm not meant to have this beautiful life that I see other people having. I'm not meant to have success and finance, and I'm not meant to have a great marriage. No one's going to accept me for who I am. I have to work at love. I have to work. What I have to give in order for someone to love me. That was the mentality that I grew up with at home, carried into every single relationship. Was in order to be loved, Maureen, because it's conditional for everybody you're with.
Yeah.
So on the condition that you do enough for them, then you can get loved.
Got it.
And so understanding unconditional love was the first step for me. And then the narcissist.
So did you read a book or did you come across a video or how did it happen?
What's the super crazy part is when we were trying to get my travel trailer back, the detective who was on the case, we ended up getting the trailer back. He called and said, hey, I need to come and verify that you got your trailer back, and so we can close the case. And I said, okay, great. Met with him where the travel trailer was, and we just got to talking, and we started dating, which is, the irony of it. And that was kind of the turning point for me, where I realized the difference between healthy and unhealthy. And it was the first relationship where I stood my ground. And I said, we're not a good fit. These things don't work for me. And I didn't move him in, and I was gaining this independence, and we dated off and on for a year. And finally I was just like, I'm getting better at this. So I'm starting to trust myself. The crime junkie world, when I started, my father's always been into true crime. And so my father actually brought it up to me, and he said, you need to look up sociopath. And I looked it up, like Ted Bundy. And I went, oh my gosh, that's what it was. And then, you go on the rabbit hole. And and I start getting into the psychology, and I embraced it. I loved it because it helped me understand me better, and it helped me understand other people so I could see the signs. So, it's like empowering to be able to identify what to look for this time. Now I can build that trust and that confidence. But sitting at home for, those couple of years was the best thing I could have ever done. I had to learn to be alone. I had to learn to like being alone. I had to learn how to realize that I had value without being in a relationship. So I started joining like meetup groups and going hiking, and people started talking to me, and they were interested in what I had to say. And I thought, hey, I'm kind of cool. I don't need a relationship to validate me. And so it was just sort of this growth. And there were nights, trust me, lying in bed, just crying my eyes out. And my dogs were there for me. And that's where the premise of really following our dogs to be mindful and to live our best lives, it started. That was the seed that started. And, that 2-year journey was so empowering. It was so empowering to me. And then I went online and decided, okay, well, I'm going to do this online dating thing, which I've never done. And I'm just going to look for a friend. You go on a dating site to look for a friend. But that was like my mindset was like, you've got this. You can make decisions. You can choose. And you're never going to be influenced to do something you don't want to do. And so this gentleman reaches out. He lives in Colorado, but he's moving to Arizona. And we had these great conversations via email. Then we started having phone conversations. And he's just a great, really nice guy. And I'm having great conversations. And he's asking me, do you want to go out when I move? And he moved a month later. When I move there, do you want to go out? And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I just, I'm just kind of chilling on the dating thing. And, I just want to be friends. And then he would reach out again, and I'd say, hey, how are you doing? No, I don't think I'm ready for that. One day I'm sitting at my desk, Sabrina. It's a Wednesday.
Okay.
And I get a text.
Yeah.
Hey, do you want to go on that date? And I thought, you know what? This guy's so cool. He's patient. He's not pushy. He's a gentleman. And so I said, yeah, I think I will go on this date. And so he gets this text, and we meet up for our first date. And I said, was it weird for you? You sent this text, and, I finally said yes. And he looks at me and he says, I didn't send that. I went, wait, what? He goes, I have no idea where that came from.
Did you actually check his phone?
Yes. There was nothing. He did not send this text. And
so when you look at his phone, your text is just like randomly just hanging out there.
Yeah. And that's what he said. He goes, I saw your message, and I was like, oh, okay. He was like, cool. I guess she wants to go out now. But he didn't know that I had received a text from him. So we still to this day have no idea. I have some idea. I am spiritual, and I believe things are divine. And when they're meant for you, they're meant for you. So yeah, we did. We went on this first date, and it ended up being a 6-hour date.
Yes.
We closed the restaurant down. But I'll tell you, I still had that sort of self-doubt when I went out on this date, just kind of testing myself,
Yeah.
maybe even self-sabotaging a little bit. I walk in the restaurant and I see him and I'm like, hey, hi, how are you? First thing I say is, I thought you'd be taller. Okay, that's really nice. The second thing I say is, you really need to update your picture on your dating profile because you look a lot older in person. I'm just, ping, 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 the insult. I mean, and it didn't faze him.
Wow.
It didn't faze him one bit. His confidence was so attractive to me. I'm like, oh my gosh. If he would have said that to a woman, we would have been like, I'm out. Yeah, no, this isn't cool.
Yeah.
So we sit down to have dinner, and I love food and I love different kinds of food. And I know it seems silly, but I think we all have these preferences and we want someone that's compatible.
Yeah.
And I remember dating a guy who didn't like butter on his toast. He wanted like plain toast. And I like different foods. I want to try all kinds of cuisines. And we're going to order. He says, well, what do you want? And I said, oh, well, there's a couple of things that look good. And he said, yeah, this looks good. He goes, why don't we order it all and split it? So I'm like, oh,
yes,
you're so cool. He orders the bottle of wine instead of a glass, which I love, a generous man. I've had stingy men who use coupons on dates, and everything was flowing, and he was funny, and he has like this dry sense of humor and sarcasm like I do. And I remember looking at him going, I really like you, and I'm afraid to like you, but I really, really like you, and I don't want to like you, but I like you. And it just was sort of this flow that never happened before. It was this sort of knowing. And the odd thing was, the things that I disclosed on this date were not something I would have ever disclosed before.
Wow. Okay.
And I remember hearing your podcast with a previous guest where she said, you can't be afraid to have these conversations and have these, ask these questions. And that's in your marriage. But for me, in dating and being a dating coach, you've got to ask the hard questions. And, you need to not be afraid to spill it all. And when I would date, people would say, God, you're a breath of fresh air because you just throw it all out there. I'm like, I need to know. I've been through, those other ones, and I need to know. So we just had literally like the sex conversation within, 2 hours of our date.
Wow.
Found out we were extremely compatible in that way. We talked about, our beliefs, our history, our marriages. I mean, it was as if we just had known each other for 10 years and we're just, catching up. And that felt so real to me for the first time. Like there was nothing hidden for once. I felt like someone is going to be as vulnerable and open as I am. And we dated for 4 months. And then I broke up with him. Oh. And the reason that I broke up with him was that I was in a place of enabling my daughter, and my daughter had a lot of things going on. She herself ended up in an abusive relationship. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of guilt over that, possibly because I thought she saw that, and now this is what I did. Yeah. And so she was in this abusive relationship, and I was at her beck and call because my parents weren't there for me. So, now I have to. Got it. I have to overcompensate that, right? And be there for my daughter for every minute of every, emotional breakdown that she has and save her. So as I'm doing that, this gentleman started backing off and working a lot. Okay. And I said, I can't do this. I need to be someone's priority. I have been second priority to alcohol and gambling and all these things. And I'm never doing that again. My line in the sand, I'm never going to be second priority. And he said, I'm sorry that you don't understand. My work is my priority. And I said, you're right. I don't. Bye. So we break up, and he understood. But what we didn't understand at the time was this was necessary. 6 months go by. I stopped enabling my daughter. And I realized I got to let her fall like I did. I've got to let her grow. I've got to let her deal with all of the things that I had to deal with that made me strong today. So I back off from really being her emotional crutch.
Yeah.
And so in the meantime, this gentleman, his mother passed away. And we had still kept in contact, just like, hey, how are you doing? How's life? I dropped something off at his doorstep for Christmas. His mother passed away 2 days after Christmas. And he went back to, he's from South Dakota, and he went back there for the funeral. And then he came back and found the gift. And he said, thank you for the gift. I end up 4 months later just sending a text and saying, hey, how are you? Let's catch up. Let's go have lunch. Because he never left my mind. He was this guy that he was like the bar where I would hold everybody else too. And I'm like, maybe I should revisit this. I never go back once I'm out, but this one, I think this one I'm going to do this with. In the meantime, he had this heart-wrenching conversation with his father after his mother passed. And his father was just, talking about all this regret and all these things that he didn't do in his marriage and what he didn't do, how he didn't show her how much he loved her and all those things that he should have said to her or been there for. And so he gets back from that conversation, and literally 5 days later, I texted him and said, hey, let's catch up. He had said to himself, if I ever had a second chance with Maureen, I would do things completely different and I would make my priority. We get together for lunch. He is a changed man. I am a changed woman. And it was the funniest thing. We didn't realize it. It's these little things that happen that you don't know until later.
Yeah.
We got together for that lunch and he was just completely different. And he said, I know what I did wrong and you will be my priority. And I realized after talking to my dad, the most important things in life are relationships and the love that you have. And so he walks me out to my car and I remember he kissed me and he said to me, I guess the universe just wants us together. And it was weird because I hadn't even done the spiritual, sort of enlightenment thing yet. And that he would even say that would even come into his mind was interesting in hindsight.
Yeah.
And so we got back together and yeah, that's my husband. We got married in 2018 and it is the most amazing marriage. And he's the hashtag marriage goals. And all of my girlfriends, everyone says he is the bar. He is the standard by which anyone who is single measures themselves against. And it's the healthiest marriage. And it was just so different because I was different. He was different. We healed ourselves. We couldn't have done that together. We had to have that 6 month, let's figure out what's wrong with us and not, because if we would have done it together, I don't think it would have worked. I think it would have been more that we're not healed. We're not healed and we're looking for someone else to fill that void. And yeah, so that's my story. And it continues today. He is just, I can't even believe when I was telling you before we got on that I wake up every day and I pinch myself with the life that I have now.
That's so amazing. Wow.
Just
congratulations.
Finding your worth and being able to evolve to this career in life coaching and to help others. My goal was be the voice I needed.
Yeah.
I was back in that darkness. Be that voice for someone. Let someone know how amazing they are because maybe they've never been told it. And that's where I was. I hadn't been told I was amazing. So I had nothing to believe in. Right.
Yeah. 100%. So when during this journey with your now husband, the amount of time between your ex and your new husband, where did the dogs fall into play?
That, you have those like sort of epiphany moments in your life and you don't know why, or, why now. It really was. It was, my daughter had gotten Brody, our little Australian Shepherd, as with her, she had her boyfriend and they got this dog. She was going off to college and they were going to like split parenting this dog. Well, she decides when he drives her to college the first day to break up with him. And guess where the dog is? The dog is now with me.
Yeah.
And so I just got to adopt my sweet Brody, and he's now 10.
Oh.
And then my little Chihuahua, she came 7 years ago. And this is like sort of in that recovery, stage where I just always wanted a Chihuahua, found her, and they've taught me so much. They taught me unconditional love.
Mm.
They taught me spontaneity. They taught me don't sweat the small stuff. It's all small stuff.
Yeah.
They taught me be playful, have fun, like do what you want when you want.
Yeah.
And as I was watching them, when I'm going through all of this, it just was that idea light bulb moment where I thought, man, we can relate this. Everybody has dogs. Everybody has animals. Even if it's not dogs, you've seen dogs or cats even. I mean, cats are a little bit different, but, they're special in their way as well. And they're just as loving, a little more conditionally loving, I think, than the dogs. But it really, as I just watched them, I just started writing these chapters down and thinking, oh, well, we can talk about this. Oh, look, they go out into the yard and they play with each other and they get along. And then the next minute they're just laying down taking a nap. So it just evolved to the first book, which is My Dog is More Enlightened Than I Am.
Yes.
That title, of course, is because that's what I thought. I'm like, gosh, you guys are so much more enlightened than me. How can I be more like you?
Yeah.
And so that was the first book. And then everyone was saying after the first book, Maureen, after all you've been through with relationships, you really need to write this book. You really need to tell people what not to do. I'm not the psychiatrist who went to college for 4 years to learn about marriage and relationships. I'm the girl who lived it for 40 years.
Yeah.
Unhealthily. I have the checklist of what not to do so you can hone in on what to do.
Yeah.
So that's how the second book, excuse me. So that's how the second book, My Dog is My Relationship.
Yeah.
My Dog is My Relationship Coach came to be. And this is actually my granddoggy, Callie.
Oh my gosh, what a great picture.
Which is really funny. This is my best friend's bedroom.
Yeah.
And those are my feet and her ex-boyfriend's feet.
Ah!
Which is so hilarious because we had the cutest feet because my husband's and my best friends were not cute. So we were under a down comforter in 107 degrees in the summer getting these pictures taken.
Oh, wow.
Little backstory.
So cute.
Just a little fun backstory that this is not just a clip art cover. So
100%. So I want to ask, one of the main things that I love to hear when, after I hear somebody's story is just kind of, people realize most people realize when they're in a dark spot. They're like, I'm in a dark spot. Got it. I need to get out of the dark spot. Got it. How? Can you share with us maybe like 3 steps, like the 3 steps that you took to overcome your past and like start to heal?
Oh, absolutely. And they're so simple, but they're so effective. The first one was me just writing in a journal and writing down how I was feeling, how angry I was, how dumb I felt, things that I wouldn't do again. It was just this release finally to say, this needs to come out. I need to own it. So the first thing was the journaling and the accountability. I think was a big thing for me. And it's funny that I was asked in a previous podcast that she said, when you divorced your first husband, what did you tell everyone? And I said, well, that he cheated on me. And she said, how come you told everyone he cheated, but not that he had abused you? And I said, because when I tell people he cheated on me, he looks like the jerk. When I tell him I was abused, I look foolish. So
yes.
that was a realization for me. I went, oh my gosh, that's why. There was too much shame associated with the abuse, and there was more, it was easier to blame him for the cheating than for me to say, oh, well, I have to take accountability for being abused and for putting up with it and for allowing it, because you get treated the way, that you allow yourself. So
Wow.
So she says, what do you mean by accountability? Accountability is, what part did I play? So journaling and taking accountability was just put it all out there. Put your shame out there. Put your guilt out there. I had to deal with a lot of guilt with the parenting with my children, that I chose a bad partner. My accountability was I made choices and I didn't think them through. So even though I was a product of what I was programmed to be, I always say, don't be mad at the sculpture, try to understand the artist. And so here we are, this sculpture, and we're mad at what we became, what we were created to become based on our experiences, upbringing, things we've heard and seen. And so really it was me saying, I'm the common denominator. What do I do? What do I do that I can change now? So how do I stop the insanity cycle? Doing the same thing, expecting different results.
Yeah.
After that, step 2 for me was, like I told you, it was just being alone, being comfortable. I had never been out to eat by myself. I had never been to a movie by myself. I had never gone to a function without a partner by my side. So overcoming a lot of this insecurity and, building this self-confidence was huge.
Yeah.
And you had to get out of your comfort zone. And
Yeah.
that was step 2, was I've got to do things that I've never done before that are really nerve-wracking and anxiety causing. But once I did it, it was empowering. It was like, it got easier every time, it just got that much easier. And then number 3 was the learning. So it was research, read those self-help books, take those courses.
Yeah.
I started taking those psychology courses and learning more. One of them I took was narcissistic behavior in relationships. I mean, what better than to integrate my coaching, to have my education as well as my experience. It's so well-rounded. So I have a better view of what all is entailed in that. So really learn. Don't be afraid to dive into, your own coaching, your own, counseling or therapy. I mean, I think it's almost like, breaking that egg. Once you crack it, it's bound to just come apart. And so I think we have to kind of crack the egg of our psyches and just say, okay, it's wide open now. How do I fix the things that are inside?
Yeah.
And that was really empowering for me to establish further the trust in myself, because I didn't have trust in myself up until then. I didn't believe I was capable of making good choices. I wasn't capable of, knowing what a healthy relationship looked like. I didn't have one. My parents didn't have. I mean, they're still married 57 years now, but it's not a relationship or a marriage that I wanted to copy. And they're very old school. My mother is very subservient to my father. There's very divided male and female roles in the house. Lots of double standards when we grew up. My brother had one chore, take the garbage out. My sister and I had to clean the entire house, do the dishes, make the beds, vacuum, laundry, right?
Yeah.
I mean, So of course, what did I do? I took that out into the world and got with men who had that same belief where I have
Got
to
it.
do everything and they don't have to do anything. And,
Yep.
my father wasn't an alcoholic, but he definitely drank. That was a very common occurrence. He had a band. They would play in they turned our garage into a music room. And I would, go grab the beers for everybody. I was the little runner and I would crack them and take my sip and hand it to them. I mean, alcohol was normal. So I didn't go out into the world thinking alcohol was bad.
Got it.
So it's all that programming. It's all
Yeah.
that stuff that you're not even aware of that's been implanted, really, that you can't be mad at yourself and you can't criticize yourself for becoming what you were programmed to become. The only time you take accountability is when you put the mirror up and say, this isn't working for me. Now it's your choice. Now you can make the change.
Yeah. 100%. I totally agree with that. I want to ask you, a lot of times, when we start to use the word narcissism, the word that goes along with narcissism on the other side is empathy or empaths. And in my, journey, and this may not be everybody's opinion, but in my journey, my viewpoint for a very long time about myself and other empaths was the fact that we were sort of weak and didn't really have a backbone. What do you think is kind of the biggest myth about being an empath?
You hit the nail on the head. And they even say that. Like when I was taking my narcissist course, they even say that they sort of prey on people that seem weaker, or that people that are more givers, the healers, the fixers. And you're right, that is a myth, because in all honesty, an empath has so much more strength to be able to see through people, to see who they really are, and to see souls. I say that now. I see souls. I don't see people. And that's the strength of an empath, is that we are able to look past your human flaws, your habits, your repetitive things, your false and limiting beliefs,
Yeah.
to see who you really are and who you can really be. There's no weakness at all. I almost get on my soapbox. I'm doing one of those. There is no weakness in being an empath. It's just unfortunate that we do run across people that they may have a sense of, they have so much insecurity. A narcissist is extremely insecure. And so they're going to be attracted to someone who makes them feel secure and who takes care of them. And that's what an empath is a caretaker. And it's not about weakness. It's about, empaths have to be protected. We have to learn how to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
And as an empath in the service industry, when you're working, that is so important, to be able to not soak it in, sort of have this armor where got to protect myself, because I'll take in your problems for sure. And so learning to date, have relationships, family relationships, friendships that we don't allow to overcome who we are, and staying in that on that path of alignment and true to ourselves, is really the key for an empath.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. That's definitely something that we all need to think about, as empaths, and realize that it's so important to make sure that, we embrace the positive things that empaths have to offer, because there's so much.
Yeah.
I
think they're the light workers. I think that's what we came here for. I believe that I'm here and that's the beauty of healing too, Sabrina, is that I can tell this story with laughter. I can tell it with a smile. I can laugh at how crazy I was and how my mindset was, completely, not what it should have been. But I can look back now with gratitude and no pain, no sadness, no trauma, and just say, I came here for this. This is what I wanted. This is what expanded me as a person. And it allowed me to be more empathetic and to be the helper that I want to be, that I'm, destined, I feel in my soul to come here and fulfill this purpose. So thank you for all of that stuff. And that's when you know you're healed, is when you have gratitude for the experience without the pain.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree with that. What is the number one lesson that you've learned about life?
The number one lesson, I believe, is to validate and appreciate. And I think from the most basic human level, it's what we all need. That's all we're looking for here. And you can see the strongest, people, the most determined people still need that validation and appreciation. These actors, these wonderful award-winning actors, they want validation. They get an award, right? Athletes, they get a gold medal. It's what we need to do for one another, and not. I think a lot of people are afraid to give that to others because, oh, I don't want to make their ego bigger, or which is silly. I think our purpose here is to say how you feel, be vulnerable, and the best connection you can ever have with anyone is telling them how amazing they are and what they mean to you. And I think that's the life coaching taught me that, as well as my journey, was that you think everybody knows how great they are. People have self-confidence. There's so many people that don't know what they do well because they've only been told what they do wrong. And that's for me, the biggest lesson. Any opportunity you have to say something to anyone, I don't care if it's on the street, I don't care if it's in the grocery store, friends, family, take that time every day. That's one of on my daily planner. It's one of my tasks is nurturing, whether it's reaching out on LinkedIn to someone, or engaging on social media who's lost a pet, or has a sick relative. I make sure every day I do one thing that nurtures somebody else.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I so appreciate that. I was just going to say something and now I forgot because I got so interested in what you were saying, which is a good thing. That's a good thing. Doesn't matter. I'll think of it later. But listen, we're talking, one of the main things that I know that you coach is belief systems, limiting beliefs, disempowering beliefs. I would love to know what was your most disempowering belief that you've had throughout your journey, and what do you believe now?
Great question. Great question. That the first disempowering belief was that I had to earn love, that I was not lovable, and in order to be loved, I had to earn it. That it was an act that I had to perform in order to be appreciated and accepted for who I am. And I have absolutely learned that is not the case. And the most empowering belief I have now is that I have this life is for me to create. So I have the power to create everything that I want in my life. So I can believe, if I believe it, it will happen. If I set intentions, it comes. The more, it's like rolling a ball uphill, it gains momentum. The more positive I put out there, the more love I put out there, the more that comes back to me. And I can have, be, and do anything that I want. Finally.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. 100%. That's fantastic. So with all of this awesome information that you've poured out to us, I would love to kind of get an idea of, what you do and what kind of coaching you do. And, what do you do for humankind?
I mean, life coach is such a generic term now, I know, but there's so many different aspects to life coaching, and every client is different. And I think the value of my life coaching is, again, the education mixed with the experience. And I coach on helping people to overcome limiting beliefs or false beliefs and to be a positive change integrator. So it's recognizing those things you want to change first, and then you go to the integration of it. And so it's literally just these step by step moments instead of all at once. And we were talking, sometimes, your clients come and it's only been a month, they've had 2 sessions, 3 sessions, and they're like, I'm not changing. And having patience and mercy on ourselves, you took a lot of years to get to where you are. It's going to take some time, and it's a process. Trust the process. So in my life coaching and relationship coaching, I work with people who want to get into the dating world, which I absolutely love coaching on because I'm an advocate, obviously, with my book and my history of how we do this the right way, how we get all of the information to make these educational decisions. And I say educational decisions, not just emotional decisions. So we know what we're getting into. And I also do spiritual, which spiritual coaching for me is just really finding who you are, staying true to who you are, and embracing mindfulness, meditation, and those things that keep you in alignment with who you are as a soul. The main thing that I do in my life coaching is, or I would say the one thing that's really different about my life coaching, Sabrina, is that there is no cookie cutter. There's no cookie cutter coaching. I don't have, I know a lot of people have like a method and they have a process, and every client, goes through these steps. I don't. I feel you. I feel your energy. I hear you. I hear what you're not saying. And I determine, where are you and what do we need to do? And so every single client is super unique and special to me. And I don't just do your hour is up, time to go. I am available all the time because I say problems don't have a schedule. So I've done phone calls on the weekends, holidays. It doesn't matter. When I'm needed, I'm needed. And that additional attention and love that I provide, it moves my clients so much faster to believing in themselves and moving to where they want to be.
100%. That's fantastic. So if somebody wanted to learn more about you, the website above your face, is that the best place for them to go?
It is. There is a schedule a clarity call where we talk about what your needs are. There's a contact us. It all comes straight to my email. And I also have a Facebook page called Mindfulness and Positivity Seekers. It's a fun little page. We're growing, which is exciting. And it's just a bunch of just people interacting and being there for and there's also the Facebook and Instagram, Life Coach Maureen. So yeah, but that's the main one is the website. And then I'll be starting a podcast soon as well.
Yes, and we're excited about that. That's fantastic. I do want to say, there's still people on here watching live. We're well over an hour, so I want to just personally thank those of you that are still supporting us and hanging out with us and commenting and asking questions. We so appreciate the support that you guys are giving to the Her Version platform here. But Maureen, I obviously, if there's women that are still watching, they are connecting to you and they're appreciating your story. And, I want to ask for, those that are really relating to you, what is some advice that you would give to females who are feeling helpless from the trauma they've endured in their life?
Please, please, please reach out to someone. If you don't have a support system, you know what, reach out to me. Find a group, find a Facebook group, find whatever you need to be able to share that information. People will have resources for you if you need to get out of your situation, especially if you are in danger or your children are in danger. I beg you to do this for yourself sooner than later. And Lucy, bless your heart, reach out, and we'll be there. We'll be there for you. And that's what we're here to do, is help one another. So don't do what I did. Don't keep it all inside, because it doesn't go away. It doesn't go away, guys. It will just completely build until it just manifests itself over and over until it is healed, and you leave that situation and figure out how important and amazing and what your self-worth is, that you matter.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And for those of you that are watching live, for those of you that are watching on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay. Maureen and I will be around if you tag us, and we'll make sure we comment. We're there for you with any questions or comments that you do have. I do want to ask, Maureen, do you have any closing statements before I wrap up?
I have one thing to say, and that is just, if no one has told you today that you are beautiful, you are amazing, and you matter, and you bring a light to this world that no one else could do. So thank you for being you. And I love all of you, and we're all here. I told Sabrina, we are all part of a ladder that we lift each other and we help each other. And that's what we are, women. We are here to support one another and love one another.
100%. I totally agree with that. And giving warm, healthy vibes to all of you out there that are here listening. So as always, I want to thank everyone who's here listening live. Thank you so much for being here. The Her Version community is expanding every single day, and it's filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this podcast, make sure that you like, comment, share, anything that you can do to help spread the word. The Her Version podcast is all based around sharing amazing stories of struggle to triumph. If you do have a story like this, make sure you reach out here or at herversion.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others, like Maureen here. Thank you so much. Do something awesome today, and